Hello everyone, how you doing today? Thought I'd do another video and show you some updates of things I've been working on and a couple things from other authors again. This time all Kriel related. To start with, I'm in this little tiny ship that I'm going to call a Spore, I believe. It's basically like a breacher. It's designed to mount up into the beholder over here. And that is done by flying into one of the two bays that it has now, like right up into these little cutouts, and then you kind of fly up until it docks. Now I did a poor job docking this time, and I wasn't aligned very good, but you know what? It doesn't matter, um, as now you can just hop in and out of the ship here. So this is like Spore Bay 1. On the other side of the ship over there has Spore Bay 2. And these are just little compartments to mount this particular ship into. And this isn't much of a ship. It's I couldn't really do much of anything with it because of the size constraints. I couldn't really make it any wider or more block usage or anything like that. But it is designed to go through and inside enemy POIs to shoot the bad guys and keep the pilot relatively safe. In this case, it's using a armored cockpit, a couple of hardened steel blocks up front here, 2 Gatling guns, has about 450 ammo storage and 700 regular cargo storage. Also has O2. This is actually an O2 dispenser right here, and O2 tank and Wi-Fi and a fridge. So that is basically how this works here. And you just take this out here a minute. Now I had to use one RCS on this to get it to fly, and it flies pretty good with the RCS. The problem I've got is with roll. It's far more roll than I would like it to have, but I can't do anything about it. You can correct yourself by the O key, but if you use the Q and E keys to roll the ship, it's so responsive, it's too hard to control or to ever really line yourself up very nicely, unfortunately. But without the RCS, it totally doesn't maneuver. And hey, I just ran into the ship. All right, let's try this again. I'm going to go dock this up on one of these bays here that's free here in a minute. Let me just correct my positioning a little bit here and see if I can be a little bit better with it this time, maybe. I've done this quite a few times and I found it pretty easy to do. And then you just hop out of your ship and you walk up into this ship. And I tried like several different designs trying to get this to work right, and I found this to be my favorite of the designs. It seemed to be the quickest and easiest to use. So as in this ship, let me switch over to mood lighting real quick and give you just a tour of a little bit of the new areas and a couple new features on the ship. It's pretty much done at this point in time. I've got a couple more sensors to add for lighting and a couple more LCDs in places, but it's almost set. So in the end, I expect this to be a Class 7 ship, although it's currently Class 8, just by a smidgen. And I'm going to try to bring it back down to 7. Maybe I got a little carried away with some details or something I was adding in places, but just put it right over the limit right now. Also, as in lighting, I have my brightness in-game set to 0 this time, and not 30 like I actually had set when I was doing the Kriel Overseer, because I tuned the lighting to that on what I seen, and I usually like to have the brightness brighter in-game anyway, because it basically gives you more of an ambient look. But this time I did not. So I'm trying to work with the lighting at brightness of 0, and so I'm trying to make it a little bit brighter than the Kriel Overseer was. In here, you'll have full medical bay. Your repair console and the repair bay is now mounted in here. Of course, these two new spore bays for those little dinky infiltrator type ships. And then everything else you'd want in here, a fridge and cooking station and armor locker, armor repair, a couple advanced constructors, pentaxa tanks right above there, stuff like that. Your oxygen is back over here, and a standard medical bay is back over here. And there's some additional cargo boxes, and I got a couple CPU tier blocks in here too. Two of them are over here, and two of them are in another location. So they're all over the ship. Basically, if you take out the CPU blocks, it's just like you might as well blow up the core, because that kills these ships. So I'm trying to put emphasis on keeping them more protected moving forward, as they're quite important. Next part here is the bridge area. And that is up here. Bridge is pretty straightforward. Couple passenger seats, your pilot seats, some controls for some of your main ship functions, exterior lights, drone hatch, harvesters, and then of course your heavy lift and thruster modes. Off to the sides here you have two crew rooms with some window access on the outside of the ship. They have their bathrooms and shower as well. So got to have a couple crew rooms. As in harvesters, I added another new feature to the ship, and I have these open right now. Again, back out of this lighting here. And what I did is I installed some new things into the legs and a couple multi-turrets basically. These are retractable, and there's some louvered doors here that will close up and conceal them when not in use, and that switch inside the ship controls that. So basically, when they're not exposed, they pretty much stay hidden inside this ship. So other than that, yeah, it's coming along pretty good, and it's very close to being done. Oh, one last thing, I was on the core last video, I kind of made mention I needed to find a home for the core. I ended up putting it here, but I made some modifications to the back part of the ship to help protect that core more, and that has to do with this little piece that comes down here now, kind of a shield in front of it, as well as some additional blocks around over here. The core is actually mounted in back over here, so I'm just trying to keep that in a weird spot that's kind of protected pretty well. From the bottom side, it's very protected, and that's what I was concerned about most, actually, because the bottom side of the ship is actually the strongest part of this ship because of its unique design, to be able to fly over a POI and take out all of its defenses, and then infiltrate it with some of these little spore guys to go up and down the hallways and shoot all the bad guys and stuff. So that is the idea and principle behind this, and I'm going to do another video maybe this weekend or possibly early next week on testing this in the field, basically taking it into a survival game to take down some POIs, test out the actual ship to see how does it really work in gameplay, and check out the little spores as well and see how they do. I'd like to at least try one POI without the shield on too, because I'd like to see what kind of damage this would take if it had no shield at all running at the time. A little hard to tell when the shield's operating. So, and what I would hope, and I don't know, and it depends purely on how difficult the POI is, would be that it could take out all of the POI's defenses before the shield goes down. But again, until I test, I won't know for sure if that's going to be the case or not. We'll see. So on other things, this is the Kriel-Eris, and this is by author Loudskin. Basically, sorry, not that one. That is my butchered version. This is the one. This is the one over here. The unbutchered version. This is a beefy ship, and I think aesthetically, looking at it, it looks very Kriel, and awesome job on the general appearance and the looks and the textures and the detail levels and the shaping. It really nails it. Awesome work on this. Now, as you look at the ship, you probably notice that it looks pretty beefy, and it is. It has a lot of thrust on it and a lot of firepower and a pretty cool cockpit setup I haven't quite seen before. It literally has 2 passenger cockpits and 2 regular cockpits. So pretty cool for like co-op. Could do a lot of stuff with the ship. Now inside, let me just get out of there and take a walk up into this. You know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to check it out at the Kriel mood lighting here too. And yeah, it does it well. Look at that. I love those these kind of effects like that. Just looking around. As in functionality in the ship, has quite a lot. To start with, when you first walk in, obviously you see an armor locker, but then you also have quite a lot of regular cargo boxes. You have your main storage here, which is at a little over 15,000. And then you have a secondary storage over here, which is a little bit under 10,000. Drone hatch, which is actually located right up over there. And some hazard lights, which gives you some neat looking blinky light effects on the exterior of the ship. A couple constructors over here, constructor power. Here's where it gets pretty interesting. You have a couple passenger seats over here. These doors actually go outside. They actually walk up to the front of the ship, out and around the edges here. I guess I'll get the light back here a sec. Which would also allow you to hop into the armored cockpit, but you can hop into there from inside the ship through this port right here as well, where I'm pointing at. But below that, you have a second pilot seat with a glass front end on it. So you have 2 options. If one gets taken out, or if you're running more than, if you're playing co-op, you got a lot of neat options here with this, and it pretty much does it all. So awesome work on this. I really want to get this thrown in the Kriel collection and see, maybe you guys check this out. It is on the workshop currently too, and I will have a link in the video description on that. The one thing that I fear that it will not be able to do how it sits, and that has to do with CPU. With CPU, and you can probably tell just by looking at it and the thruster counts and weapon counts and things like that it's not going to be very CPU friendly, and it doesn't need to be, quite frankly. As it's stock here, it's sitting at about 270,000 CPU, and your max limit is 100,000 CPU. I tried over here, and that's what I did with this butchered version here, is I tried making it CPU compliant, and I got it pretty close, but I ripped the ship apart and took out probably over half the thrusters on it, all the RCS, the 2 constructors it had, and I got it close at 102,000 CPU, and I also added in the CPU tier blocks. But I hate what I did, and yeah, I wouldn't want to, yeah. It's one of those things. I got the same problem with other Kriel ships, and most of the Kriel is not CPU compliant at this time. The Overseer is, this will be, but all the other stuff isn't yet. And some of it might be, some of it may never be. So that is a deal. And it's not required to have everything CPU compliant. It all depends, if you start up a survival game and you want the added difficulty of having CPU turned on as an option, you can do that in your survival game. And then this ship wouldn't fly at all. It wouldn't work. But ships that are not CPU compliant, such as this, are going to be able to overtake those that are CPU compliant, depending on size and everything else. But you know, this is more ship than what's allowed with that option or that difficulty option turned on, basically. But it's an extremely cool ship, and I really dig it. Moving on, another author, Justic, made an A11 version of the Kriel Ghast, and it is the Kriel Ghast, and it has no cuts to anything that I can tell anywhere. So it's got all its functionality. The RCS is removed, exactly how I would have done, but it is essentially the Kriel Ghast, CPU-wise, at Tier 4 at 98,000 or about 99,000 CPU. Now, I found a problem with it, and it's not the author's fault. It has to do with the original Ghast. And I'm believing another stat change that is really throwing me for a loop at this point in time. Maybe I'm just wrong on it. The original Kriel Ghast had 7 generators, and it was tested back when it was built. Now, this is a few versions of the game ago, before there was CPU and things. And it was cool with power while charging the shield. And then when I was testing this one, it was hitting like 110% power usage, and I was like, huh, why does it not have as much power? Well, essentially speaking, I added 4 additional generators, well, in a temporary location right now, which balanced out the power to make it in the blue, even while charging the shield. And that's what it took. You could do it with 3, but it will still get into the yellow in the 90% range in power usage while charging the shield and flying. So technically, I think it needs 4 more generators. Now, the original Ghast had 7, just like this did, and it worked. So why it needs 4 more after a bunch of RCS was cut out of it, I don't know. I suspect there was some of the patches changed the amount of power that the generators make. So that one's kind of throwing me for a bit of a loop there. And I ran into the same issue over here. I was attempting to make the Kriel Wraith over here also CPU compliant. And I'm not liking what I am having to do to the ship to do that. I already cut a bunch of the thrusters out of it, just like what the Eris had done. Cut out some side thrusters here, some back thrusters, some other thrusters I had over here, some thrusters I had in the front. Removed all the RCS. I got it CPU compliant, and it's actually a little bit below at Tier 4 right now, about 95,000. Might be able to get a couple thrusters back in there, but I had a power issue as well with this one. Even after all that stuff was cut, somehow it's running over the limit on power, and I didn't remove any generators from it. So this one needs a couple more generators in there, which would probably suck up most of the CPU I have remaining to make it work right. And I'm not sure if I would want to update the blueprint with this version. Of course, I could like fill in some things, places where I had thrusters that are now removed, here and on the sides and back over here and some more over here, and oh man, it kind of wrecks it. It works though, so I don't know what to do about this. Is one of those like in between things. Like, I don't necessarily want to update this for CPU because the cuts and things I have to do to it visually are too much. In this case, maybe I'm right on the fence. I don't know if I should or just let it be. You know, I don't like doing this. I did that to the Kriel Overseer too. I cut out a few thrusters from it to make it CPU compliant, but I like the original version looks-wise better. So I don't particularly like to do that, and it can be a little time-consuming depending on the project as well. And when you're just making it worse than it originally was, it's not very much fun, for sure. So there is that. But yeah, this is the Kriel Ghast A11 by Justic. That is very cool. I'd like to get that as a modded version on the Kriel Ghast site. It's however, I mean, I was kind of planning on doing a lot of the Kriels that I can to get them CPU compliant, the ones that I don't have to butcher, basically. I was kind of planning on doing that, but I'll leave a link for the A11 Ghast as well. Just keep in mind, it works totally fine how it is, but while flying and charging the shield at the same time, it will get to about 112% power usage, unless it had 4 additional generators installed into it, or at least 3. 3 would take it so it stays under 100, but still gets into the yellow. On other things, last video was I brought up the fact of taking a look at other authors' creations to try to treat them as my own and try to fix them up and to see what I could do with them. This is a entry I got from Dovallealex, I believe. I probably butchered your name. Sorry about that. That is the Steam name. And this is just called the Bastard CV. And I was thinking about taking a look at this one. I don't know exactly what I can do with it right now. It's you know, with a lot of the designs and stuff I've got, I've tried to do like a lot of flares and body works and things like that, but this has got more of a kind of a rectangular design, more or less. So I'm not real sure on what I would try to do with it if I were you know, to look at it. I guess my best impressions would be I'd probably start from the front and try to do some kinds of angles or something out this way, but I fear that I would change the ships a lot, in which it wouldn't necessarily resemble exactly what it is currently in the end. But I'll give it a look though. So I'll do that on a separate video. And the same thing going on with the continued build on the Kriel Starter CV. I'm going to keep those separate to their own videos, and just I'll have basically 3 types of videos in the future. One that's a building project, whatever that current building project is. Another showing off things that are being built or getting released or tested. And another looking at other authors' creations or other workshop creations to, you know, try to trick them out or do whatever to them to enhance the looks or function or whatever. Only by request though. So that's about it for today. And well, anyway, you all have a good weekend. Originally I thought loosely about trying to get this out this weekend, but I'm not quite ready with it yet. And I want a few more days at least to just try to get everything tweaked out. I'd like to put this up as a proto for friends only for a couple days at least too, to see if anybody finds problems with it that, you know, I'm not seeing or overlook or things like that. And it happens. And it happens on almost every build, honestly. I usually miss something. Could be anything from having a regular storage controller in place of an ammo controller, or lights that don't work, or other things that I wasn't even thinking about. Maybe farm plots get, you know, roasted by thruster, you know, heat that I didn't see. All these things have happened already, and that's why I like to kind of try to get things up to like a friends only proto. And I apologize, I can't accept any more friends because Steam doesn't allow for it. And I've maxed out the friend thing quite some time ago. So even if you send me a friend request, it's not that I'm denying you. It's just I never even see it because Steam won't even show me the friend request at this point in time. Steam hates me, and I'm not exactly thrilled with their support either. So we have that kind of mutual agreement, I guess, going on. Anyway, you all have yourself a good weekend, and I will see you later.